am out here with Dave Dugdale. Dave, what are we testing today?
Today we got two lenses. They're both 24mm lenses. We've got the Canon 1.4 Mark II and the Sigma 1.8, which can also be used as a macro.
Now, these two lenses have enormous price differences. The Sigma will set you back between $400 and $500, while the Canon 24mm f1.4 can run as high as $1,400. So we're going to compare and contrast these lenses on both the T2i as well as the 5D Mark III and see how they stack up against each other. Dave, do you have anything to add to that?
No, let's give them a try.
All right, we have the microphone placed right here, and we're gonna test the lens noise for the focusing motor on the Sigma 24mm f1.4. As you can see, it focuses kind of slow, and it feels even more slow because you can hear the volume of the focus motor. All right, here we have the Canon 24mm f1.4 Mark II, and we're going to check the focusing noise along with the focusing speed with the microphone placed right here. And we are in focus. You couldn't even hear that running. That is silent. It is beautiful, and it is extremely fast.
All right, on the Canon, what we're going to do here, we're going to compare the two in terms of how much travel the lens has on the focus ring, because a lot of people in video like to manually focus. So right now, I'm all the way at infinity, and I'm going to slowly rotate. And we're going to go all the way up to here, and you can see right about there is where it stops. So I'd say that's about 170, 160 degrees worth of travel. All right, on the Sigma, this one does have stops where the Canon does not. But we're going to start from infinity and then rotate. And you can see right there, it's about, I'd say 90 degrees. So almost, it's about half of what the Canon is. So if you like to do a lot of manual focusing, definitely Canon wins here.
All right, as you can see, I've got the Canon 24mm f1.4 here. It's set at f1.8, and you can see that there is a nice smooth action to this focus ring on here. As Dave is filming over here for me, he can focus in on the screen and see how easy it is to get everything perfectly into focus. It's nice and simple, and this feels very smooth. Now let's switch over to the Sigma here. And you'll notice that the Sigma has this giant focus ring here. That does not mean that it's easy to focus. A little twist and suddenly we are out of focus. Another little twist and bam, we're back into focus. All it takes is just an accidental touch, and you can see that it really jumps around a lot. You even shake this a little bit and now it's kind of softened up a little bit. That's how sensitive the focus ring is on this unit. And right now we have them spaced out about the same distance from this interesting looking fence that we have in front of us, and we're gonna check the sharpness.
On a crop sensor, you can see here that the Canon on the left at 1.8 is a bit sharper in the center of the frame. And then when we move to the upper left-hand corner of the frame, you can see that the Sigma on the right gets a little smeary compared to the Canon on the left. Running the exact same test on the 5D full frame, starting in the upper corner, you can see again that the Canon is a bit sharper. As we move down to the center, you can see that the Canon is noticeably sharper than the Sigma. Let's head back to the crop sensor at an f-stop of 2.8 to see if the Sigma can improve at a slightly higher f-stop number. And yes, the Sigma does do a bit better now, but I would still give the win to the Canon. As we move to the upper left-hand corner, you can see the Canon is still much sharper than the Sigma at 2.8. All right, we got this set up for a macro shot. Obviously, the Sigma is going to win here, but worth a try. We're going to take a couple of pictures, turn these back on. The Sigma is probably about, I'd say, 2.5 inches away from the flower that I'm filming, and the DeeJay's got his set up at I don't know.
About 3 inches, 4 inches?
Maybe, I'd say 4 inches. 3.5, 4 inches. So we're going to take some stills here and we'll compare them on the video.
We have the Canon 5D Mark III, and we're using the Canon 24mm f1.4 here and the Sigma 24mm f1.8 here. The difference between using this lens on a full frame camera versus using it on a crop sensor camera is quite stark. It's really a different experience altogether using the Sigma as a macro on the full frame body.
Next up is the bokeh test with the Sigma on the left and the Canon on the right. I'm by no means an expert on bokeh, but to me the shape of the circles on the Canon look more pleasing to me than the Sigma. I think DeeJay has a very different style than I do in terms of shooting. I would consider myself more of a run and gun shooter where I use zoom lenses a lot. I really don't have time to mess around with changing prime lenses a lot. So DeeJay, when do you use a 24mm like this? When do you use primes basically?
Honestly, Dave, I find primes are useful in a lot of different situations. You can use a prime like you use a zoom lens. You have feet, so you can walk away from your subject to get a wider shot, or you can get closer to your subject to get that close-up shot. If you have room to work, then it doesn't really matter if you're using a zoom or a prime, as long as you can get closer or further away from your subject. There is also the cop-outs that primes are better in low light, and they also are sharper at lower f-stops. Of course, those are true, but as we saw from some of the test results, the Canon 24mm f1.4 wasn't extremely sharp at f1.8 in the corners, which is a little bit disappointing for a lens of this caliber.
So DeeJay, where would you use these particular lenses in terms of a crop versus full frame camera?
Well, Dave, on a crop sensor camera, the 24mm works out to be roughly 38 millimeters. So that's good for medium shots and even establishing shots if you have enough room to back the camera up to get multiple characters. On a full frame sensor, it's better for establishing shots with lots of characters in the scene. The macro feature on the Sigma does shine quite a bit if you need to get somebody maybe writing something down or maybe putting something in their mouth, or any kind of thing that you would want extreme close-ups for. You can really fill the frame with the Sigma, which makes it a very handy tool to have in your kit. Just remember, if you're shooting close-up shots on a full frame sensor, you do get a little bit of distortion in the corners, which can make your characters look like they have kind of a skinny head thing going on. So you got to be careful of that.
So in terms of build quality, it sure seems like the Canon really wins here, especially when it comes to focusing or keeping the focus. It seemed like with the Sigma, you could pretty much breathe on it and it would go out of focus. So what are your thoughts here, DeeJay?
You're absolutely right, Dave. The Sigma is kind of a rattly lens. The front element moves in and out of the body, and if you shake the lens, you can kind of hear a little bit of bits and pieces moving around. It's not very precision. The focus motor is extremely loud on the Sigma compared to the Canon, and the Canon's build quality just feels excellent in your hand. The focus ring on the Canon is great. The focus ring on the Sigma is pretty spongy and feels like you can almost feel gears meshing together and kind of slipping back and forth. But if you don't have the money to spend, the picture quality on the Sigma wasn't too bad considering the price difference between the Sigma 24 and the Canon L Series 24. If you are in the market for a macro for your crop sensor camera, it's definitely a lens to check out.
So overall, I think the Canon definitely wins in terms of sharpness, definitely focus, build quality, it's silent. What are your thoughts, DeeJay?
Overall, Dave, I wasn't expecting the Sigma 24mm to wipe the floor with the Canon L Series glass, but I was a little bit disappointed in the performance in the corners with the Canon lens. It still did a lot better than the Sigma at f1.8, but it wasn't nearly as good as I was expecting for the cost of this lens. Which means, a lot of people will probably be just as happy with spending less money and using the Sigma, especially since the Sigma offers the macro feature. If you don't need to use manual focus on your lens all the time, which is kind of a downside on the Sigma, and you don't want to spend a bunch of money, it is a reasonable alternative to the Canon 24mm f1.4 lens. The Canon lens does go down to f1.4, which gives you a little bit more low light performance, and it seemed like when we were shooting that the Sigma required a little bit more light than the Canon. I don't know if that was just because of the placement of the cameras or how that worked out, but it was a little bit of something that we did notice while we were testing. So that's something else to keep in mind when you're considering your purchase. As always, thanks for watching. And if you like this content, please subscribe.